Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. We'll be right back to the show. But before we do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, factormeals.com, where if you go to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50, you can get 50% off your first order. That's factormeals.com/unbroken50. If you're like me and you are a person who is busy trying to create a life, heal, work on their health, wealth, and relationships, and not to mention deal with the day-to-days of normal life, you do not have time to be going to the grocery store and trying to figure out what you're going to cook every single day of the week. In fact, one time I did the math and I realized I was spending over 15 hours a week at the grocery store and cooking. When I added Factor, I got to use that time for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my community, and for my business. And so if you're in the place where you need some more support in the kitchen, head to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50 to get 50% off. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Welcome to the Think Unbroken podcast. I'm your host, Michael Unbroken, and this podcast is about helping trauma survivors let go of the past, overcome their fear, discover their identity, become the hero of their own story, and ultimately to be unbroken. Our goal in company is to bring on guests and experts in the fields of mental, physical, and psychological health to help you overcome the past, to take back your power. And in this podcast, we are unedited and unfiltered, and we're going to give it to you real so that you can start to create massive change in your life. If you're curious about learning more outside the podcast, you can get a free copy of my book, Think Unbroken, at book.thinkunbroken.com. That's book.thinkunbroken.com, where you can get a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma. The most important thing that you can ever do, my friends, is show up for yourself, and that's where you are today. And I appreciate you. I have massive gratitude for you. And without further ado, let's get into the show. We'll be right back to the show. But before we do, I want to take a moment and tell you about my new book, Unbroken Man, a man's guide to being the hero of their own story. I sat down a few months ago and realized that there are so many men in the world that need guidance, that need support, that need to learn about trauma, removing themselves from toxic masculinity, breaking down the barriers to vulnerability, getting unstuck, and ultimately learning the tools to become the hero of their own story. Unbroken Man is available for pre-order right now if you go to men.thinkunbroken.com, where you'll also get access to over $1,000 in bonuses, including the 6-week in-depth trauma healing coaching app, which you'll get instant access to. I created Unbroken Man to be accessible to everyone around the world, but it is written for men from the guise of a man, and I hope that you will find it to be a practical tool on your healing journey in the same way that thousands of men around the world have. So check out men.thinkunbroken.com to pre-order, and until next time, be unbroken. My friends, let me tell you something that is so incredibly important. And even though it happens and we talk about it in society, I don't think people really leverage it enough. And that is taking time for yourself to take care of yourself. I say to you all the time that you have to put yourself first. And that also applies to mental health. That applies to these times where you're hitting the wall, where you're facing burnout, where you're going 100 miles an hour and you just got to hit the pause button for a minute. And so I'm always thinking about mitigation of risk. You guys hear me talking about this all of the time. And so how do you mitigate the risk of hitting just complete exhaustion? That's by taking a mental health day. And in that, you have to recognize something really important. And that is that you have to listen to yourself. And you're never going to steer yourself wrong. If you really listen to your intuition, if you really follow your gut and trust that you're making the right decision for yourself, you will always make the right decision for yourself. So the question I want you to ask yourself today is, what do I need to do to take care of my mental health today? For you, what does compassion mean in your life and kindness for yourself on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is compassion for self. I mean, obviously having compassion for other people is actually, quite honestly, pretty easy for most of us. I think most people, it's easy to be compassionate to others. I think we still need way more of that. Trust me. I understand if some people are even mad at me saying that. But I think for most of us, especially with a growth mindset, we're compassionate for others. What we really need and what would actually help others and the others around us is if we had more compassion for ourselves. But I have a little bit of a different take on compassion, in that the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me about how I have compassion for myself is when I think of like self-love. Let's say that's the buzz term that everyone's talking about, self-love, which I'm okay with. I like that. We got to love ourselves. But I really think of it as, if you love yourself, and I think that's the question to ask. If you love yourself, what would you do in this moment? Right? If you truly love and care for yourself and your body and your spirit, what in this moment is going to serve and align with that the most? And sometimes that's picking up a book. And I think we have a really good innate instinct of like what we should be doing in any moment that will serve our highest quality of life. I just really have the instinct to know that, what, you've chilled for the last hour. You should be reading a book or listening to a podcast or making doing some prospecting or doing something in your business that is a revenue generating activity, and then I think you have to just really have that conversation with yourself. Like, okay, and this is why self-awareness is so important. You've worked for the last 4 hours. You're getting a little brain fog. Your brain's a little tired. Your eyes hurt. You have a little bit of a tight feeling in your chest. Like, that's when I know, like, okay, it's time to go do some breath work and some cold shower and some meditation. And then I also know that there's some times where it's like, Kjell, when's the last time you took a day off? Now it's time to literally do whatever the fuck you want today, whether that's watching Netflix, eating ice cream, whatever. And I have those days too. But I really think that it's easier than we think to know what to do in every situation. We just have to have that reflection and ask ourselves, if you really love yourself and have compassion for yourself, what would you do in this moment that's going to serve your highest quality of life? And really include all factors and experiment. And if you're having trouble with that, the best strategy, I think, is to get outside yourself and say, if you were your best friend, if you were someone that you love, what would you tell that person to do right now?
Mindfulness is a very, very important tool, but now it's become like faux pas in social media where it is now a thing that you quote unquote do, right? But it's so impactful and it's so important to take it seriously, especially if you're dissociated and especially if you're triggered and especially if you're in crisis. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? Like as a baseline, like how do you actually really step into awareness?
Well, let me say two things. One thing is we're very open about, and we describe this in the book, that the book is actually written as a self-help guide. So it's for people that feel that they're somewhat in control of their lives. Or many people will work their ways through crises on their own. That's great. Some will need some help, and that's really what the book is for. Others, they maybe can read and think about it, but they're not able to make the changes in their lives that are necessary. And we're open about that. These people in that situation are going to need to have maybe the help of a therapist or have someone that can guide them and help them become aware of their own situation and help them also find the right steps to take or the right directions or the right changes in their everyday behavior. But one thing I use just to your first question, how do you get that presence, is with sports athletes, because I've often worked with athletes at quite top levels, and for them to get focus and be in the present is quite important, is often just simply to try to get them to answer the question, how are you feeling right now, right? And trying to put words on how are you feeling, thinking about what are you thinking about? What are in your thoughts? What are you feeling? What is your mood? What sensations can you feel? Can you feel your fingers touching each other? Can you feel the muscles in your arms? We could even go through different, let's say, relaxation exercises, again, to get the focus and concentration away from tomorrow, away from the disaster that happened yesterday, away from the argument that happened yesterday or earlier in the day, and just to get into the present and to have the focus on that. And it takes training. So it's not something that can be just done automatically. It's like an athlete, right? They need to train. And so when they're trying to, perform at their peak, they need to have that training. They can just go into it in an automatic way. So there's no easy quick fix of it, but that's one way to start that process, is to really just maybe try to put oneself in a quiet area, right? So that there's not so many lights, there's not so many sounds, there's not so much noise, all these things, and then trying to then just feel like how do I feel right now, and then maybe go through different elements and especially the senses to try to get into touch with really where you are at that very, very moment.
How do you give yourself permission to take a break without beating yourself up?
It's a good point, and it's interesting to that you're discussing this with you want to change 1 million lives, and it's again I would say I would think in that context really simplifying it in the sense is what is it that you're trying to do. And I've heard your podcast, Michael, and they're just brilliant, and I just so respect what you're working and what you're doing, and what you're doing is you're trying to help people, right? So the way that I think about it is that I don't do podcasts. I'm just working as a therapist, but I want to try to help one person at a time, right? And if I can help that one person, then maybe they can be a positive influence for some other person, right? And if I can just do that one person at a time, then maybe that's going to grow something that's going to be worthwhile over time. So I try to then simplify it. That's the way I do it for myself, right? Really try to simplify down into something a little more specific, a little more concrete, not larger numbers, not larger amounts of anything, but just one thing at a time, having focus and giving it my all for that one experience or that one opportunity.
We'll be right back, but I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about the Think Unbroken 6-week trauma healing coaching program. If you go to coaching.thinkunbroken.com, that's coaching.thinkunbroken.com, you can sign up for the 6-week daily Think Unbroken trauma healing coaching program. In this program, we're going to go over the 6 principles of healing trauma, adaptation, understanding the impacts of trauma, how to become the hero of your own story, what to do next, and ultimately what it means to be unbroken. For more information about this 6-week coaching program, which you can download as an app on your phone and take with you everywhere, no matter where you are in the world, it's interactive. It's built about giving you practical tools that you can use in real time. And if you're ready for what's next in your life, go to coaching.thinkunbroken.com. Again, that's coaching.thinkunbroken.com. Now let's get back to the show. Often when we step into trying to follow our intuition, our gut, to try that thing that we think we want to do as children, there's often ramifications on the backside. People say, no, don't, stop. That's not how you do it. You're not good enough, so on and so forth. And then you end up in this place where you're 25 years old, 30 years old, 71 years old, and you're like, I don't know who I am. Talk to me about the journey and what that's been like to step into choosing yourself, and what was practical for you along the way to be able to actually do that.
Great question. So choosing myself, man, for the entirety of my childhood and even my young adult life, I was always choosing my family. And I was just choosing, what school should I go to? What career should I step into? How should I act? How should I talk? Right? And I was doing all of that but also causing myself so much pain, because I'm like, I'm living for these people that have damaged me so much, where at one point I never knew if I was ever going to be able to come back. So I started really contemplating on that. And I'm like, why am I living for people that have hurt me? And if I'm not living for them, who am I going to live for? And I really was only left with myself. And at first that was scary, because I think coming out of my own experience, I was definitely a little codependent, right? My identity kind of was dependent on them and who I am. But when I was really only left with myself, that's where I saw that I really just have to choose myself. And there were many times within the past few years, and where I was just like, well, who am I? And at first that could be scary, right? Because you feel like you aren't anyone, you don't know who you are, but that's also the beauty, because you get to create who you are. And once you start creating who you are, you start really getting just a very narrow focus on what it is that you want. And something I've learned, and I stick to very well, is if something comes up in my life and it aligns with what I want, then I go for it. If something comes up in my life and it doesn't align with what I want, I do not go for it. And so that could be people, places, hobbies, thoughts. Thoughts is a big one. As you know, you always talk about mindset, and that's another thing. I think that that's very powerful. But yeah, choosing yourself is just going to provide massive value for your journey.
Talk to me about what that was like for you to finally take control and be responsible for your mental health, though, and especially with something bipolar, it's chemical. Like, you have zero control over it, but you have to have control. What's that juxtaposition like for you?
Yeah, I love that you bring that point up, because I was actually talking to someone else about this, about the things in life that you can control and things that you can't control. And right. So, having that diagnosis and having that imbalance is something that I just can't control. So, but what you can control is where you go moving forward with that information. How are you going to respond to that? What are you going to do about that? Or what's the next step, right? So I have control over that. I don't have control over having the diagnosis and all these experiences that I had, but now I can do something about it today. So what I decided to do, and honestly, out of everything I've ever done, therapy, medications, all kinds of different things or whatever it is, the biggest thing that has made the difference for me is actually working on myself. working on my mindset, working on the thoughts and reconditioning that and the way that I speak to myself, right? So working on this inner critic of myself versus like this inner cheerleader and trying to choose that, more side of positivity rather than focusing on the negative. So it would be almost so common for me every single day to wake up and my feet hit the ground and I just go to like everything that sucks. Like I have to go to this place that I don't like, or like I have to deal with this person. I'm in a fight with someone about this. And it just turned into like this snowball spiraling effect of everything that was wrong. And then everything that could potentially go wrong for the day. So that's the mindset that I started all my days with. So what I had to do was, you know what, I'm going to stop this. This is an issue. So I started to recognize that. And I started to recognize patterns that I had as well, and different behaviors that I had that were hurting me and hurting other people. So I said, what can I do about this to change this? What can I do to make this go away and to substitute something else in its place that will benefit myself and benefit other people and keep me in a better state of mind. So what I really started doing was just reading a lot of personal development books, listening to a lot of podcasts, journaling. Gratitude was huge for me. And I used to think when I was struggling, I used to think that was so dumb. I'm like, what is it going to do for me to sit here and write down 3 things I was grateful for? And that was because at the time I had a very, very hard time even identifying one thing that I was grateful for, because I was so focused on everything that was wrong, everything that could go wrong, that I couldn't even see the blessings that I had. I couldn't even see the things that I did accomplish because I was so focused on all of this stuff that it literally consumed all of my thoughts. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start looking at the things that I have, the things that I'm grateful for, the things that I'm looking forward to, and doing that, all of that stuff, the gratitude, the journaling, changing how I speak to myself, those things were really, really got me to this place of now when I start my day and I end my days, I start it on the best foot possible, because I'm going into it with a mindset of appreciating where I am right here in this moment, instead of saying, I'll be happy once this happens, or, and then once you get that, then it's, well, once this happens, then I'll be good. No. And so saying that you can create that, and we can manufacture our own happiness within ourselves. And that's the biggest thing too, is that I started to notice is there's little things we can do every single day that can become habits that can help us be in a good place and stay in a good place and can continue to learn and grow. And that's really what I love, honestly, is just every single day continuing to learn more things, discovering new resources, related to mental health, and like having more of these conversations, connecting with people, whether that be through social media or in person, and just having more of these conversations and figuring out what we can do to really make this a thing where talking about mental health struggles is going to be as common as talking about the weather. So it's not even a thing where it's weird anymore. It's just like, it's completely normal. And I think honestly, if we were able to eliminate that stigma once and for all, then that would actually have a huge ripple effect on many things, like so many different things that are going on in the world. Of course, when you turn on the news, you see all kinds of things like, like shootings, killings, all these different things, people going, in and out of jails, in and out of treatment centers, in and out of hospitalizations. And what can we do to really work on that? And I think kind of the root of the problem may be mental health and, overcoming unresolved trauma and making these conversations possible to be had without leaving people feeling like they can't talk about it, or else you'll be judged, you'll be called weak. And I actually think it's a lot it's harder to have these conversations in the beginning, because of course you're vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there, you're exposing your own stuff that maybe you don't even feel comfortable talking about yet, but the power in doing that opens up so many doors for you really to just move forward and lift that burden out from under you.
Unbroken Nation, hope that you just got a tremendous amount of value from today's episode. I want to know what you think. please do me a favor and review, rate, and share the episode with 3 friends on social media today. It would mean the world if you did, because ultimately at the end of the day, creating community and connection is how we heal generational trauma in the world. And I need your help to do that, Unbroken Nation. So if you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you are, please like, comment, share, review. I want to know not only what you like about the show, but how I can make the show better, how I can make this further about helping you on your healing journey. So do me a favor. And when you do, shoot me a screenshot of you making the review to my DM at Michael Unbroken on Instagram so that I can have a conversation with you, say hi, and more importantly, so I can share it with the Unbroken Nation. Thank you so much, my friend. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show, but I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of live coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program.